welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula 1. So the Qatar Grand Prix has come to a close, and what could be said about it really? It was all a bit of a shambles, wasn't it? Let's be honest. It was a sprint race weekend as well, which made it all the more difficult for the drivers to get acclimatised to such a dusty circuit, a resurfaced circuit, the big gusts of wind. The changing of the track limits as well due to the silly curbs. It was just all a bit of a joke, wasn't it? And once again proving that the money far outweighs the actual, spectacle of the sport, and also the health of the drivers as well, because those temperatures were getting a little bit silly, weren't they? And we saw plenty of drivers struggling at the end of the race. Logan Sargent didn't even make it to the end of the race due to practically passing out in the car. There's some really disturbing videos. Lance Stroll going down the straight with a couple of laps to go, and his head's just like leaning over to the left like he's not fully with it. It's silly. It's really silly. Esteban Ocon vomiting in the car, drivers passing out, can't get out the car after the race has ended. And as mentioned as well, of course, Logan Sargent not even making it to the finish and had to stop. So, yeah, it's all a bit of a joke, and once again proves that these fucking Middle Eastern circuits that are paying all this money are really just ruining the sport. Let's be honest, come on. There were no support races there this weekend. There was nothing. It was just purely F1 only. There were hardly any fans or spectators there. It was just a bit of a fucking cop-out, really, isn't it? Just a load of shite. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the circuit anyway. I wasn't a fan of it in 2021. Certainly not a fan of it now. But yeah, nonetheless, we'll kick things off, shall we? So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out of a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points though. There's sometimes an offer for some drivers that do something extra special during a race, and on the very rare occasion I do award minus points to those drivers that do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Crawl Room standings then. It's on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is going into this weekend's scores. Can you see him going up? Can you see him going down? Who are you predicting for a Latifi? Will another driver find themselves in the disqualification pile? It's all to play for, isn't it? It really is all to play for. This championship is really hotting up. The real life one may be done and dusted, but this one is certainly going to go down to the wire. So let's kick things off with the race winner then, Max Verstappen. And congratulations to him for winning 3 World Championships now, a 3-times World Champion. He won it on the Saturday, which really does bode the question, will he ever win a championship normally? 2021 we had Abu Dhabi, of course. 2022 we won it because of a 5-second time penalty for Charles Leclerc after the race. And then this weekend, this season, he's won it on a Saturday. So yeah, he just can't do things by halves, can he? He's got to win it in some unique style every single time. Yeah, Max Verstappen, though, massive congratulations to him. He has been the dominant force this season. He has ran away with it. Apart from Singapore, where we had the bit of a hiccup, it must be said, the rest of the season has been nigh on perfect, if not perfect, to be honest. It's been absolutely ridiculous what he's been able to do in that Red Bull car and himself. You know, he really has pushed himself to the limit. And at only 26 years old, he's still got a lot more to deliver. I honestly think he's going to be title favourite by a country mile for 2024. 2025, I maybe expect it to be a little bit closer, but I still think he'll get it. And then it all depends on those regulation changes and whether Red Bull can stay ahead of the pack there. But yeah, Max Verstappen and Red Bull are having a fantastic time of it at the moment, aren't they? Constructors champions, drivers champions. And Max Verstappen this weekend, a fairly faultless weekend once again. The only thing that is to note, of course, is the fact that in the sprint race weekend he qualified in P3 and finished in P2. So he didn't win there. Now, with the form of Max Verstappen, you'd have thought he would have won absolutely everything. But no, he didn't win the sprint race, did he? And he didn't qualify on pole for that either. But the main race on Sunday was pure domination. His 4th ever Grand Slam in Formula 1 he achieved there. Yes, Alex Albon did technically lead, but he didn't actually cross the line in the lead. So that means that Max Verstappen led every lap, got fastest lap, started from pole, and won the race. So yeah, he did everything that he could to achieve his 4th Grand Slam, so congratulations Max Verstappen for that. But for this weekend overall, I'm going to award him 9 points. 9 points to Max Verstappen for that effort, and I'm literally just knocking him 1 point off for not being on pole in the sprint and for not winning it. Of course, he had much more agenda on his mind at that situation, you know. He literally just wanted to make sure he wrapped the title up as soon as possible. I can't blame him for that. But yeah, he just fell short of the victory in the sprint, so that is the main reason why he's getting a point off. Perfect for him is literally winning everything. He didn't do that. So yeah, 9 points to Max Verstappen. And finishing in second place, Oscar Pastry. What is your favourite pastry? I cannot believe it. What a fucking superstar. And I've got to be honest now, Oscar Piastri, my driver of the day by a country mile, my driver of the weekend by an absolute stretch as well. And I just, honestly, he's just shown everyone else up this weekend, hasn't he? He really has. I was doing the scores for this and I was like, well, hang on a minute, no one's done as good as Piastri, so they're all getting less than him. Oscar Piastri, yes, that McLaren is updated, and fantastic effort to the McLaren team for being able to understand what's wrong with the car, put a package on it to get it back up to speed where it should be, and then to add an additional package back onto it to get it as the second fastest car. It's absolutely ridiculous. So congratulations to McLaren. But they have got two drivers now that can score these points, that can score these podiums. He won the sprint race, so technically his first ever victory, even though it weren't going to technically count. It's still a massive milestone for Oscar Piastri. It really, really is. And then in the race itself, he started 6th. He had a lap time good enough for 4th, elevated to 3rd with his teammate getting track limits, and then demoted back down to 6th because his lap time had a bit of issue with track limits as well. But in the race itself, you know, the tangle happened with the two Mercedes. Fernando Alonso and Charles Leclerc took evasive action from that, and he just slipped himself up the inside into second place, and that's where he stayed for the remainder of the race. An absolutely stunning effort by Oscar Piastri this weekend. A circuit he's never been at before, in those tricky conditions, as I mentioned at the start of the video. You know, he is just a talent of now, isn't he? He really, really is. And I've always highly rated Oscar Piastri, I must be honest. And everyone kind of thought at the start of the season it's a mistake he's not gone with Alpine. But wow, oh wow, McLaren have proved us wrong, and Oscar Piastri has proved that he does deserve that McLaren seat. Extended till 2026 now, his contract. McLaren are lucky to hunker him down, they really are, because he is going to be a talent of the future. He's just going to get better. He really, really is. So congratulations to Oscar Piastri this weekend. Nothing but praise. Absolutely stupendous. Absolutely stunning. And congratulations to McLaren as well for now achieving the fastest ever pit stop in Formula 1 with 1.80 seconds, beating Red Bull's previous record of 1.82. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. No one ever thought that when they went to the bigger tyres that the record were going to be broken, because I think the Red Bull one happened in 2020 or 2021, didn't it? When they started the 13-inch tyres and not the 18. But yeah, McLaren are literally just nailing everything at the moment, aren't they? Nailing the updates, nailing the pit stops. The drivers are nailing it as well. It's absolutely fantastic to see. So yeah, congratulations Oscar Piastri. It's 12 points. It has to be 2 bonus points for that stupendous weekend. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Congratulations, Oscar Piastri. 12 points to you. Securing 3rd place, it is Oscar Piastri's teammate, Lando Norris. And yeah, another solid weekend by Lando. P3 in the sprint and P3 in the race. But it wasn't plain sailing for Lando, was it? It just wasn't. I'm sorry to say, but I have got to mark him down quite a few points here compared to his teammate, because Oscar Piastri had the measure of him this weekend. You know, drove so much more smoothly, so much more consistent. Oscar Piastri taking the pole in the sprint and the victory in the sprint. Meanwhile, Lando Norris made a mistake on his final push lap. In the qualifying session, he made the final mistake, didn't he, at the final corner. So lined up P2. Then in that sprint race, he bogged down and then had to gain his way back again. Dropped as low as 6th in that, but was able to secure 3rd place. And in the race itself, he had a lap time good enough for 2nd, but he just kept getting his lap times deleted all session long, didn't he? He had to keep doing more laps than anyone else pretty much in that qualifying, in quali 1, 2, 3. He was just getting lap times deleted all over the place. So started P10, recovered fantastically well for P3. I'm not going to deny that, absolutely not. And yeah, he did look faster than Oscar at the end of the race, but Oscar had done all he could have done to be in that 2nd place, and he rightfully deserved to keep it. I think because McLaren are really hunkering down and trying to take Aston Martin now for that P3 in the Constructors, or P4 in the Constructors, isn't it? Sorry, yeah. But yeah, they're really knuckling down. They need to get that achieved. They were right to put the team orders in place and say to Lando, no, you're not going for Oscar. We need this 2nd and 3rd. And they have closed the gap now to just 11 points. We've still got like 6 races left, including 2 sprints, so it's going to happen. And then I can look at McLaren and go, well, hang on a minute. Mercedes, you know, could be caught as well. Well, Ferrari is, isn't it? But they could be caught as well at the moment, with them seemingly not having much pace. So let's wait and see. We could see McLaren finish as high as third this season, and after the start they had, that is unbelievable to say. But yes, fourth place very much on the cards. Lando Norris this weekend, though, a solid weekend, a great recovery, but there were issues there. So he's only going to get 7 from me, a solid 7, and probably even generous by a point or 2 there, it must be said. This weekend, yeah, the end result was good, but the way he got there was a bit difficult, wasn't he? He kept making loads of mistakes, loads of problems, loads of issues, just couldn't gel with the car, and his rookie teammate really showed him up. So yeah, a solid 7 to Lando Norris. Then we come to George of the Russell. Watch out for your teammates. Yes. Oh dear, oh dear. It all kind of boiled over in Japan, and then here we come to Qatar. And yeah, we have contact with your teammate again, and his teammate's out. George Russell spinning at the back of the grid, had to pit for a puncture. Yeah, but a great recovery to finish P4. Now, he's not going to go in the disqualified pile just yet. Of course, he is on a final warning, but unfortunately, I do lay the blame with Hamilton. Hamilton admits it was 100% his mistake. So, you know, George Russell gets a let-off here. He really, really does. But he's not going to go without punishment, so to speak. So yeah, I didn't want to give him a Latifi. I didn't want to disqualify him. You know, it was very much a racing incident. As much as I laid the blame with Hamilton for what happened, it was a racing incident. But if there was blame, of course it was Hamilton. No, Russell just had nowhere to go, did he? Nowhere to go at all, and Hamilton came sweeping round the outside and made contact. So yeah, it was fucking stupid. It was ridiculous. It shouldn't happen, but it did. And that's the end of that. So George Russell, a fantastic recovery from last in the pack. Had to make an additional pit stop, of course, at the start of the race. And yeah, it was just basically a great recovery. P4, it kind of really looked as like, well, you should have been second, to be honest, shouldn't you? Could have been a Mercedes double podium looking at that kind of pace from George to carve his way through like he did. But George Russell this weekend, he doesn't go without punishment, but he doesn't get disqualified. I'm awarding him a solid 6. He's getting a solid 6. I think the sprint race went as good as could be, considering he was on the soft tyre. He did hold off from some medium shod cars at the end. That had to be commendable. The race itself this weekend looked to have so much more to give. He did recover well from the scenario at the start, but even though I do lay the blame with Hamilton, just be a little bit more careful. You know, it's lap 1, turn 1. You can't win a race, but you can certainly lose it. And George Russell potentially lost it this weekend. So, George of the Russell, a solid 6. And that's as good as he's going to get. Finishing in 5th place, we come to Sha-la-la. Oh, sacre bleu, sha-la-la. I didn't really see anything of him this weekend, I've got to be honest. Didn't see anything of him at all. I can't remember what happened in the sprint race to him. That's how anonymous he was. I think they picked up a couple of points, didn't they? But it was nothing worth writing home about. And then in the main race itself, just kept trudging round in a lonely 4th and 5th kind of area. Ended up 5th, and that was it really. We saw nothing of the lone Ferrari, did we? So, yeah, bit of a shame there for Charles Leclerc. Nothing that he could do. It was just the pace of the car, really. 5th was really going to be the best he was going to get. He was lucky that Perez is just shite. He's lucky that Hamilton was out on the spot. He's lucky that, you know, the Aston Martin didn't get him. So, yeah, you know, Charles, here he is, finishing P5. I can't expect anything more of him at the moment. That Ferrari is just a bit of a handful, isn't it? And, yeah, probably the 3rd, 4th fastest team, so finishes around 5th. Yeah, fair enough. It's going to be 8 points to Sha-la-la. I think that's a solid weekend performance all round. Didn't do anything overly wrong this weekend, but didn't do anything overly right. But deserves a decent score because he's driving a Ferrari. 8 points to Sha-la-la. Finishing in 6th place, we come to Fernando Alonso.
I can't believe Haas have re-signed K-Mag and Hulk for 2024. Like, come on, guys. Surely I'm worthy of a seat somewhere in F1.
There we have it, I'm afraid. It's a Latifi of the week to Fernando Alonso. Just uncharacteristic this weekend by him, it must be said. Yeah, I don't really know what to say. Okay, here he is finishing P6, and that's a good effort, you know. But made mistakes, didn't he? Made mistakes. We had 2 offs in that race. One big off as well that obviously lost him a few positions, bouncing through the gravel, and then an unsafe rejoin which has awarded him a reprimand. Yeah, just a scruffy weekend. You know, there was problems here, there and everywhere for Alonso, weren't there? Just couldn't gel right with the car. The Aston Martin has clearly lost pace as well. So to finish 6th is still a great effort, but by Alonso standards, this overall race weekend was just a little bit poor, wasn't it? I think he picked up just 1 point in the sprint, didn't he, in the end, after crossing the line 9th due to a penalty for someone else, and then in this race picking up 6th. So yeah, he has done what he can do, but that's not the usual Alonso we're expecting to see. A couple of mistakes in the race, big offs, you know, I mean, that could have been in the wall, it could have been stuck in the gravel. That unsafe rejoin, he could have collected someone else, he could have spun out the speed he entered that circuit around that bend. You know, so he has to be lucky that he was able to finish in such a strong position and only get away with a reprimand for what he did. I would have put a time penalty on it, to be honest with you, but, you know, FIA is FIA. And overall, Fernando Alonso, it's a Latifi of the week. It wasn't a bad weekend, did what he could with the car he had, but it could have been so much more. He was just very mistake prone this weekend. So yeah, Fernando Alonso, a Latifi of the week. Finishing in 7th place, we come to Bestie Ocon. Fucking dirty. Absolutely dirty. But here he is, Esteban Ocon, finishing in 7th place. And overall, the weekend has been very much up and down, hasn't it, for Ocon? To finish 7th place in that main race after you've been spewing up for a couple of laps earlier on has to be commended. The fact that you kept driving as well, you know, just proves how difficult the conditions were. So to pick up 7th in that Alpine is really the best it can do. The best of the rest category, so to speak, is around that 7th area. And he did all he could to achieve that. The strategy was good with the tyres, and he just put the car there in the place it deserved. But in the sprint race, he goes and makes a stupid error that took Perez, himself, and Nico Hulkenberg out of that sprint race when they were on for points. So, of course, Esteban Ocon was on the soft tyres in that one, so, of course, he could have slipped down the order in the sprint. But, yeah, Hulkenberg had a go at him, and then, OK, he went wide and he wanted to squeeze Hulkenberg. I totally get that. He wasn't aware that Perez was on the other side of Hulkenberg. So, yeah, a scenario of 3 into 1 doesn't go. But then you look at Ocon's on board and Hulkenberg's on board. Ocon was going to swerve all the way to the racing line as far out as he could to basically just push Hulkenberg off the track anyway. He was going to do that anyway, regardless of where Perez was. Hulkenberg was getting shoved off with the position and angle that Ocon came back on at. So it was going to end up in tears anyway, regardless of Perez. So this whole 3 into 1 scenario was really just fortunate for Ocon to kind of hide his embarrassment of a stupid mistake, losing his head because he was running wide and getting attacked by cars on medium tyres. You know, Perez being there really let him off because everyone was just like, well, 3 into 1 doesn't go. No, we were going to shove Hulkenberg off anyway out of frustration. So I am taking note of that when I award him just this lowly score. He doesn't get a Latifi though, so, you know, bear that in mind. But he is just getting 4 points. 4 points to Esteban Ocon. He took Hulkenberg out, heavy damage. Took himself out, heavy damage. Took Perez out, had to have a chassis change and had to start from the pit lane in the main race as a result of that. That rule needs looking at. If you're going to put more sprint races in, there's going to be damage in a race. People need to change their chassis as soon as possible and change them overnight. You can't go penalising teams and drivers. If you crash in qualifying, that's one thing. But if you get taken out in a race that you've added into the sport, you can't be doing this third car bollocks rule, can you? And making people suffer in the main race when that main race has its own qualifying and race session, as does the sprint. So that's just my thoughts on the matter on that anyway. If you're adding additional races, you shouldn't really be penalising drivers for that. If their car is damaged beyond repair, that's down to the sport, really. If you crash in qualifying, yeah, you pushed too hard and you deserve it. You know, you deserve to start from pit lane. That's your mistake. But getting wiped out in a sprint race that then affects the main race, despite them being on totally different qualifying sessions and a totally different race, I don't think that's fair, but that's just me anyway. But yeah, Esteban Ocon, it's 4 points for me. 4 points to Esteban Ocon. Lucky he's not getting a Latifi. The race weekend itself, the Sunday, he really saved himself, picking up 6 points for the Alpine squad. They're safe for 6th in the Constructors. They're not aiming for 5th. And, of course, they're well clear of Williams in 7th. So these points are really just nice to add to the collection. You know, they're going to want to get over 100 by the end of the season. But yeah, he really did save himself, because if this race hadn't have been that impressive on Sunday, he'd have been getting slapped with a Latifi right away, because I was very unimpressed with what he did in the Saturday sprint. But there you go. 4 points to Ocon. Finishing in 8th place, it is Valtteri Bottas, now disqualified on the cruel room anyway after a very, very lacklustre season, it must be said. You can't deny me of that. But he's listened to me. He's listened to me. A great qualifying in that main qualifying session on Saturday. Got him in 9th place. And then in the race itself, the strategy worked out well, and he just kept himself out of trouble and stayed in the position he practically qualified in. OK, a couple of cars slipped through that were out of position. That's fair enough. But here he is, securing 8th place. And 4 points for the Alfa Romeo team, who really deserve those points, really need those points. In all honesty, had Alfa Romeo had 2 decent drivers like what they've done this weekend throughout the season, they'd have easily been 7th in the Constructors by now. I think the car's always been capable of more than what the drivers have delivered. But here they are, finally delivering the goods, and Valtteri Bottas secures 8th place. So yeah, I can't award him any points anyway, because he has been disqualified, but it's nice to take note that he's listened to me and has booked his ideas up and done a stunning qualifying and a stunning race. OK, the sprint race was a bit nil and void and a bit dud, but that can't be helped. You know, the sprint race, it matters. It matters when you win, it matters when you're in the points, but if a car's not in the points, you know, if you deliver on the Sunday, I can forgive the Saturday, so to speak, if you didn't do anything too drastically stupid anyway. So yeah, Valtteri Bottas this weekend, disqualified anyway, but I was impressed, I will say that. And in 9th place, it is Guan Yu, a double point scoring Alfa Romeo team. That was absolutely incredible. I can't believe they managed to do it. Zhou actually crossed the line in 12th on the soft tyres, but because of everyone else's penalties ahead, it elevates him to 9th. And do you know what? Fair play to Zhou for that, because you had Stroll ahead, you had Gasly ahead, you had Perez ahead, all getting 5-second time penalties or more due to their stupid antics and not being able to keep it within the track limits. Guan Yu didn't do that. He kept himself within the white lines at all times, had some good pace. He had a busy old race, didn't he? Overtaking cars, battling with cars, fighting with cars. Alfa Romeo put him on a cracking strategy to pit him at the end there with a few laps to go for the soft tyre, so he was able to gain on the cars ahead. All the cars ahead ended up with 5-second time penalties, and here he is elevated to 9th place. Not Zhou's fault at all. Credit to Zhou for that. The drivers going off is their fault. Guan Yu this weekend, it's going to be a solid 8 points for me. Absolutely fantastic effort. Knocking him a couple off because the qualifying was incredibly poor, but from P19 to P9 is a well-deserved effort, especially in those tricky circumstances and conditions. Benefiting from people's misfortune, benefiting from people's penalties, absolutely, but they put themselves in that position. Guan Yu would normally be the one picking up 5-second time penalties, having silly offs and errors. We've seen it a lot this year. This weekend he knuckled down and delivered the goods, and that means that Alfa Romeo now have overtaken Haas for 8th in the Constructors and have closed the gap to just a mere 7 points with the Williams team. So if they keep this momentum going forward into Austin, you know, Williams at the moment seem to be a little bit of a rut and a little bit of a stumbling block. If Alfa Romeo could suddenly find the confidence and go, fucking hell, we can do this, you never know. You never know what's possible at Austin, but let's wait and see. So yeah, Alfa Romeo elevated to 8th place in the standings, closing in on 7th with Williams, and Guan Yu, a solid weekend, a solid 8 to him. Finishing in 10th place, it is Checo Sergio Perez. I don't really know what to say anymore. 10th place from a pit lane start. It's still not good enough, is it? He gets awarded 10 seconds worth of time penalties. Some he had to serve in the pits. Some he got added on to the race at the end. Just disgraceful driving once again. Not his fault in the sprint, I will say that. Not his fault at all. But then in the main race itself, just very lacklustre. Yeah, the pit lane start was unfortunate, affected by that sprint race, of course. But what's he doing? What is he doing? I would not have him in that car next year, I've got to be honest. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would or I wouldn't, because I don't think there's anyone suitable to put in it at the moment. So, yeah, lesser of two evils. I suppose while ever Max Verstappen can win his own Drivers' Championship and Constructors' Championship for Red Bull, then they can have whoever they want in that second car. But yeah, Sergio Perez, another disappointing weekend, picking up just 1 point from 2 races effectively. Not good. Not good at all. So yeah, Perez disqualified anyway, been disqualified for a while, and yet another ridiculously disappointing showing. Finishing in 11th place and just outside the points, it is Lance Stroll. Well, I mean, he's just outside the points at least. At least he's not crashing and taking himself out or, you know, being a miserable bastard and pushing his team members. Oh, hang on a minute. No, he did, didn't he? He did. He absolutely did. Get him the fuck out. Get him the fuck out. I'm sorry, I'm sick to the back teeth of this now. There is no way he should be allowed to get away with that. It's fucking ridiculous. Absolutely disgusting. So yeah, I don't care who's paying your wages. I don't care if I were there. If I were that personal trainer, I'd go, right, we're all going on strike. As a team, I'd go, this half of the garage is on strike until you get him fucking sorted out. You know, I don't give a shit about him being shit. You know, that's one thing, staying up all night having to fix his damage every fucking 5 minutes. But, you know, to then start being physical with team members is unbelievable, ridiculously disrespectful. You know, those guys are working night and day to try and give you the best car possible, and one, you're not delivering it, and then in two, it's everyone else's fault. Fucking spoil rich kid once again. Born to a billionaire daddy that buys you a racing team, and you can't even be bothered to try and show any kind of interest in it when you're doing an interview afterwards. Just get the fuck out, Lance. Just get the fuck out, honestly. We're all sick to the back teeth here, and that was the last straw for me at Qatar. Yeah, he's been a dismal driver for several years. Yes, he never deserved to be in F1 in the first place. I've said that several times. I've said it throughout his career. But then he gets physical with a team member. No, that's it. There's one thing to be shit on track and keep crashing and costing your team late nights and damage and everything like that. But then to be physical with the team that are trying to keep you in the sport and try and get you back on the grid after you keep fucking shunting and after you keep being shit, it's not acceptable. So Lance Stroll, an absolutely fucking ridiculous idiot. I am sick to the back teeth of him. And yeah, he's not scoring points once again, not delivering anything special, nothing spectacular. He's just fucking useless. And he needs to be gone. I don't even care. I can't even wait till the end of the season now. Just get him fuck out now. Just run with one car, Aston. Ask the FIA, look, can we just run with one car for the rest of the season, please? We're calling force majeure here. We've got a driver that's a fucking idiot, and we need to get rid of him. And I'm sure the FIA would approve, because it would save them a lot of bills in, you know, repairing Armcos and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Lance Stroll, disrespectful, knobhead, talentless twat. I am sick to the back teeth of him, and I really want him gone from the sport. I have had enough. I have had enough. You don't go pushing your team members. You don't go doing that. So yeah, there you go. Lance Stroll. Fucking idiot. Finishing in 12th place, we come to Pierre Gasly.
Did anyone see the F2 race where Vesti lost both of his rear wheels after the pit stop? The Prima team employed Ferrari's pit crew for that race. Hey, at least he actually got some wheels fitted to his car.
And there we have it, the Latifi of the week 2, Pierre Gasly. Oh dear, his first one as well, actually, his first one. Can you believe it? So yeah, Pierre Gasly, absolutely awful this weekend, no explanation for it. Track limits here, there and everywhere, overtaking cars off track. He did that a couple of times with Lance Stroll and of course Sergio Perez. He was fighting with those at the end and really struggling, finishing outside the points. His teammate was there in 7th at least, and yeah, he's just had a very dud weekend, hasn't he? A very dud weekend indeed. He was lucky, really, that I took kindly to him in Australia, because that would have been Latifi worthy, taking out Ocon, had I not said that whole restart procedure was an absolute farce, which it was. So yeah, but apart from that, this season, he's been okay, hasn't he? He's been okay. He's been picking up the points. He's just slightly ahead of Ocon in the team's championship, in the drivers' championship, I should say. Both fairly equal. We know what happened in Japan, and then here this weekend he's just lost his head and just can't hack it. So yeah, a Latifi the week 2, Pierre Gasly, a very dud weekend. It should have been a point or two, but there was 5-second time penalties and having to let cars back through because he's overtaking them off track really put pay to that. So yeah, there you go. Sorry Pierre, it's a Latifi of the week to you. Finishing in 13th place, we come to Alex Albon in the Williams. Another one of those drivers that was struggling after the race, of course, unable to get out of his car without assistance and had to go to the medical centre, as did many of them. Liam Lawson as well, of course, and all the others mentioned at the start of the video. It's been a tale of two fortunes for Williams this weekend. Alex Albon did fantastically well to get himself up from P17 in the sprint all the way up to P7, gained 10 places and secured his team 2 points, 2 crucial points in that sprint race format. The medium time tyres working out well for him, and he drove really, really well. In the main race itself, of course, he qualified himself P14, which was realistically the best the car could have done, looking at what happened. In the race, it started off well. He almost led a whole lap to himself. It wasn't quite a full lap, as mentioned, with Max Verstappen, because he had to mandatory pit, and by the time he crossed the start-finish line in the pit lane, Max was already back through again. But, yeah, you know, Alex Albon this weekend, the main race itself was lacklustre, it must be said. He caught himself 10 seconds worth of time penalties for track limits, which wasn't ideal. He was on his final warning by about lap 25, so he had a long way to go. Picked up 2 more off-track penalties as well. One served in the pit lane, one had added to his additional race time. They didn't affect position because everyone else behind him was lapped, but yeah, tale of two fortunes for Alex Albon very much this weekend. A great sprint, a difficult Sunday, but overall I think a middle-of-the-road 5 is fair to Alex Albon for that. You know, picking up those 2 points is crucial, especially when Alfa Romeo have just scored a massive haul of points with 6 points in that final Sunday race. You know, the 2 points he picked up at the sprint has kept the gap at 7 as opposed to 5, so you never know what could happen. But Alex Albon carrying the Williams team once again, but a difficult Sunday, and I think everyone would say that as well. Everyone would agree with me on that. Not a characteristic Alex Albon kind of weekend on the Sunday, but the Saturday was very much impressive. So yeah, middle of row 5 to Alex Albon. Finishing in 14th place, it is Kevin Magnuson in the Haas, and I was going to award him a Latifi, I've got to be honest, but I have avoided it because I think this weekend has just been one to forget for Haas. Yes, Kevin Magnuson out in Q1 in both of those sprint and main qualifying sessions, of course. The race itself wasn't even running round inside the points, but at least he didn't make any silly errors and get any silly penalties like his teammates. So yeah, kind of saved him there, and he's only going to get 3 points for the whole weekend. It's got to be honest, it's not a big score by any stretch of the imagination. He wants to count his lucky stars. I've not given him a Latifi because, as mentioned, the qualifying was very, very absent compared to his teammate Hulkenberg. But Hulkenberg couldn't make that main qualifying count, could he? And that was the big issue for him. So yeah, Kevin Magnuson this weekend, once again a lonely weekend, a Haas-typical weekend, and just 3 points to him on the cruel room. Finishing in 15th place, we come to Yuki Tsunoda. What could be said for Yuki's weekend overall? It was like the AlphaTauri of early on in the season, wasn't it? Didn't look to have the pace at all throughout the sessions, it must be said. Just narrowly missing out in to get into Q3 though, or SQ3. I can't remember which one of the sprints he did a great qualifying in, but he had a good qualifying nonetheless in one of them. In the other one he didn't do as well, so it kind of mitigated what he'd done in one of them because the other one was a bit shitter. But overall, you know, Yuki Tsunoda this weekend, he couldn't do anything. The car was shit. The car was shit, I'm sorry to say. So, yeah, Yuki this season has done great. This one has been a very absent weekend for him, and for that reason, it's going to be a solid 7. I don't fully blame him for what's gone off this weekend. Didn't do anything wrong, didn't do anything majorly wrong, no mistakes, no bin it in the gravel, etc. But I'm afraid it can't be a great perfect score because at the end of the day he is still finishing 15th place behind a Haas. It's nothing spectacular, but it is a solid 7 to Yuki Tsunoda. Finishing in 16th place, it is Nico Hulkenberg, or shall I do it? I'll do it. I don't feel like I'm in the mood because I do feel a bit sorry for Hulkenberg, but here it is anyway. It's Nico Hulkenberg. Yeah, disaster really, wasn't it? That sprint race would have been points for Haas easily. You know, the medium compound tyre who was attacking Ocon on the softs. Yeah, Perez would have probably got him anyway, but I think he would have scraped a point or 2. Yeah, that was a big shame. He got took out by Esteban Ocon there. We've penalised Ocon for that. But then in the main race itself, after a fantastic qualifying effort to get himself into that Q3 session, he lines up in the wrong grid spot, takes Carlos Sainz's place that was very vacant in the race, of course, and unable to start. That netted him a 10-second time penalty and ruined absolutely everything for the Haas team and for Nico Hulkenberg. Came out last of the runners. Here he is finishing ahead of just 2, I think, at the end. And, yeah, Nico Hulkenberg, what a shame. What could have been? I mean, you know, they had the mandatory pit stop times of just 18 laps. We know that Haas usually suffers on tyre life, so, you know, it kind of mitigated that kind of issue where all they had to do was meet the targets and they could have gone and maybe scraped a point or 2, but as it was, once that 10-second time penalty came through, that was deserved, unfortunately, Nico Hulkenberg cost himself and the team potential points there. And in the sprint, unfortunately, he didn't score the points he rightfully deserved due to an issue. So I am matching Kevin Magnuson's score of 3. He does deserve to be punished for the issue of lining up in the wrong grid spot, but he doesn't deserve to be punished for the sprint race, and that's why I've not awarded him a full Latifi, because I do think that there was some shining moments there, a great qualifying, a great sprint, some things out of his control, others were very much in his control, and a shame to see. But yeah, nonetheless, 3 points to Nico Hulkenberg. And then last of the runners, we come to Liam Lawson, another one struggling with heat temperature fatigue at the end of the race. This weekend, Liam Lawson, a mistake in the sprint, not good at all, straight off into the gravel after corner 3. He didn't last very long. His own mistake and his own doing. In the qualifying for the Sunday, he had a much better qualifying performance, but was unable to capitalise on that. And here he is finishing down here at the back and last of the runners. So for Liam Lawson, it's just going to be 4 points to him. 4 points to Liam Lawson. A difficult weekend, debuting at a track where there was limited running, limited practice sessions, dust, sand, heat, new surface, tyres potentially failing. It was a difficult one for him to adjust to, so I don't think it's Latifi worthy. Probably is going to be his last time now, I would say that. I think Ricciardo is very much going to be in that car come Austin, come what may. But yeah, Liam Lawson, it's a shame to see his little path of career end here on a bit of a low, but nonetheless a sterling job that he's done in the few races that he has done. Picked up a couple of points for AlphaTauri, the worst team on the grid, has to be commended. But yeah, this weekend just wasn't his weekend. A difficult sprint format at a difficult circuit, a new track to him. We can't expect miracles every time, can we? So yeah, it's just going to be 4 points to Liam Lawson for that. Yeah, below average, but not Latifi worthy. Next we come to Logan Sargent, the last on this list, of course, to retire from the race. Yeah, what could be said for Logan Sargent? Disqualified on the cruel room anyway, has been for some time. The sprint race, he stuffed it into the gravel, silly error. Liam Lawson made the same mistake, and then in the main race had to retire due to illness, and I don't want to criticise him too much for that. I think some other drivers should have really pulled up when they were struggling, but didn't. Yeah, he did the commendable thing there. His seat's on the line, his drive's on the line. I don't want to criticise him at all for what he's done this weekend. Yeah, the sprint was shit, but the main race itself, I'm not going to criticise him for that. I think it's commendable that he actually stood up and was like, no, I need help here. I need help. And yeah, some other drivers didn't do it and suffered afterwards. So yeah, Logan Sargent disqualified anyway, retired due to illness. I'm not going to hold that against him. I'm not going to stand here and shout and rope and say that he should have finished the race, because at the end of the day his health comes first, his health matters, and he didn't make it. But I'm sure he'll be back stronger in Austin for his home Grand Prix, and I look forward to seeing him there. And then we come to Lewis Hamilton.
If I was in that Williams car this year, I'd have outscored Alex Albon. Remember, I outscored George once, don't you forget it.
And there we have it, Latifi of the week to Lewis Hamilton. That's his second one this season. He fully accepted the blame for the incident with George after initially saying, I've just been taken out by your teammate. Well, he reassessed the situation and was brave enough to admit his error, just sweeping straight across. George had nowhere to go, and Hamilton was off with a tyre off the rim and into the gravel and out. So yeah, a huge, huge shame for the Mercedes squad. As mentioned, they could have been the 2 and 3 place finishers this weekend. That car had some mighty pace in the hands of George Russell, especially when he was out of position after lap 1. A case of what could have been. Can't win a race at the first corner, but you can certainly lose it, and Lewis Hamilton really did lose it all by himself, all his own doing, I'm afraid to say. And yeah, it's a Latifi of the week to him. It's a shame to do it, it's a shame to see. He's been having some good performances this season. He's been very much beating George Russell throughout most of the season. But this one, I think, was a spillover from what happened in Japan. He wanted to prove that he was still the dominant driver and wanted to get second place over his teammate. And it just didn't work out this time. So yeah, Latifi of the week to Lewis Hamilton. Don't like to see drivers take the teammates out, but unfortunately this one was all on Lewis. So brave man of him to admit his mistake, and that's how you move forward as a team. But still doesn't mitigate the fact that he's stuck in the gravel and out of the race. So Latifi of the week to Lewis Hamilton. That's the end of that. No more to be said and done. But if it happens anymore, they're just going to get chucked in the bin and disqualified. There we go. And then last but by no means least is Carlos Sainz. Smooth operator. Smooth while he was driving a golf buggy more than he was driving an actual race car this weekend, wasn't it? Unbelievable stuff. Couldn't even take the start. A DNS in the race. Was unable to start the race due to a fuel leak. What a shame, what a shame. And yeah, there we go. I can't really do much. I'm just going to score him out of a maximum of 5 I can score retirements. He's going to get 4. I think he deserves 4 points just for the sprint race weekend. He had a good weekend there. The main race itself didn't do anything. Couldn't see what he was capable of doing. Couldn't see whether Ferrari could get the strategy wrong with one car and get him disqualified for going over the maximum 18 laps. I'm sure if it were going to be any of them, it would have been Carlos, but you never know, do you? So yeah, Carlos Sainz this weekend, a maximum, I'm going to give him 4 points for that. He doesn't deserve anything other than just those 4. He didn't do anything anyway, and it wasn't his fault why he was out. So yeah, there we go. So there we have everything, guys. Those were the runners and riders of the Qatar Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high? Any too low? The updated standings are on the screen now for you to take a look at. Look at those mighty McLarens climbing up the order magnificently there into 2nd and 3rd place. We've got Alonso leading the championship still and just. I've no idea how, but he just is. And yeah, there's drivers slipping up, slipping down, but look how tight it is. Realistically, the top 10 have still got a chance, haven't they? Still got a chance. We've got a sprint race format still to come. We've got plenty of race weekends left to come. We've got a triple header on the way as well, of course. 2 more rounds of that to go. A lot can happen. A lot can happen. We could see a new champion crowned in the cruel room. We could see a champion crowned for the 2nd time. There really is everything to play for now. Really, really is. So every driver needs to knuckle down and get going, because this championship looked like it was just going to be a clear walk between Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen, and now look at it. The door's blown wide open. The gaps are closing up. Literally, any error could mean the end of the world for the drivers in this Cruel Room Championship. So yeah, there's a few drivers out of contention, of course. There's a few drivers in the disqualified pile and in the bin, but for the most part, it really is closing up. A massive thanks goes out to Dan, formerly of Mushy Gaming, for providing me with the scoreboard that you see on your screen now, for the driver icons in the top left of your screen as I talk about them, or top right, whatever way that is, and of course for the intro and the outro. And who can forget Mr. Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for providing me with the Latifi of the Week skits that you all know and love. And of course, Dominic Orlando, a massive thanks to him as well for being the voice of Nicholas Latifi. So I'll see you all this time next week for the Austin Grand Prix. I'm looking forward to that. The United States once again. A great circuit, high speed, a long straight. I think that's going to favour the likes of the Williams cars that are quite slippery in a straight line. But we will see what happens. We will see indeed. I always look forward to the American race, so let's wait and see what happens. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. And as always, much love.